To start the recording. Hello, Cynthia. I already apologized in advance if this freezes again today. I don't know if there's any volunteers to read, which would just be you, Cynthia, because everybody else has declined, although I did not ask Mary. But if you are you going to read if I freeze?
Sure,
All right.
no problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you for helping. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. And we are on A Course in Miracles, Chapter 16, The Choice for Completion. In looking at the special relationship, it is necessary first to realize that it involves a great amount of pain. Anxiety, despair, guilt, and attack all enter into it, broken into by periods in which they seem to be gone. All these must be understood for what they are. Whatever form they take, they are always an attack on the self to make the other guilty. I have spoken of this before, but there are some aspects of what is really being attempted that have not been touched upon. Very simply, the attempt to make guilty is always directed against God. For the ego would have you see him, and him alone, as guilty, leaving the sonship open to attack and unprotected from it. The special love relationship is the ego's chief weapon for keeping you from heaven. It does not appear to be a weapon, but if you consider how you value it and why, you will realize what it must be. The special love relationship is the ego's most boasted gift, and one which has the most appeal to those unwilling to relinquish guilt. The dynamics of the ego are clearest here. For counting on the attraction of this offering, the fantasies that center around it are often quite overt. Here they are usually judged to be acceptable and even natural. No one considers it bizarre to love and hate together. And even those who believe that hate is sin merely feel guilty, but do not correct it. This is the natural condition of the separation. And those who learn that it is not natural at all seem to be the unnatural ones. For this world is the opposite of heaven, being made to be its opposite. And everything here takes a direction exactly opposite of what is true. In heaven, where the meaning of love is known, love is the same as union. Here, where the illusion of love is accepted in love's place, love is perceived as separation and exclusion. It is in the special relationship, born of the hidden wish for special love from God, that the ego's hatred triumphs. For the special relationship is the renunciation of the love of God, and the attempt to secure for the self the specialness that he denied. It is essential to the preservation of the ego that you believe this specialness is not hell but heaven. For the ego would never have you see that separation could only be loss, being the one condition in which heaven could not be. To everyone, heaven is completion. There can be no disagreement on this, because both the ego and the Holy Spirit accept it. They are, however, in complete disagreement on what completion is and how it is accomplished. The Holy Spirit knows that completion lies first in union and then in the extension of union. To the ego, completion lies in triumph and in the extension of the victory, even to the final triumph over God. In this ultimate freedom of the self, for nothing would remain to interfere with the ego. This is its idea of heaven, and therefore union, which is a condition in which the ego cannot interfere, must be hell. The special relationship is a strange and unnatural ego device for joining hell and heaven and making them indistinguishable. And the attempt to find the imagined best of both worlds has merely led to fantasies of both. and the inability to perceive either as it is. The special relationship is the triumph of this confusion. It is a kind of union from which union is excluded, and the basis for the attempt at union rests on exclusion. What better example could there be of the ego's maxim, seek, but
Oh,
Got it. Sorry, I was on mute. Seek, but do not find. Most curious of all is the concept of the self, which the ego fosters in the special relationship. This self seeks the relationship to make itself complete. Yet when it finds the special relationship in which it thinks it can accomplish this, it gives itself away and tries to trade itself for the self of another. This is not union, for there's no increase and no extension. Each partner tries to sacrifice the self he does not want for one he thinks he would prefer, and he feels guilty for the sin of taking and of giving nothing of value in return. How much value can he place upon a self that he would give away to get a better one? The better self the ego seeks is always one that is more special, and whoever seems to possess a special self is loved for what can be taken from him. Where both partners see this special self in each other, the ego sees a union made in heaven. For neither one will recognize that he has asked for hell, and so he will not interfere with the ego's illusion of heaven, which it offered him to interfere with heaven. Yet, if all illusions are of fear, and they can be of nothing else, the illusion of heaven is nothing more than an attractive form of fear in which the guilt is buried deep and rises in the form of love. Tara, you back?
yes, I am. Thank you. The appeal of hell lies only in the terrible attraction of guilt, which the ego holds out to those who place their faith in littleness. The conviction of littleness lies in every special relationship, for only the deprived could value specialness. The demand for specialness and the perception of the giving of specialness as an act of love would make love hateful. The real purpose of the special relationship, in strict accordance with the ego's goals, is to destroy reality and substitute illusion. For the ego is itself an illusion, and only illusions can be witnesses to its reality. If you perceived the special relationship as a triumph over God, would you want it? Let's not think of its fearful nature, nor the guilt it must entail, nor the sadness and the loneliness, for these are only attributes of the whole religion of separation, and of the total context in which it is thought to occur. The central theme in its litany to sacrifice is that God must die so you can live. And it is this theme that is acted out in the special relationship. Through the death of yourself, you think you can attack another self and snatch it from the other to replace the self that you despise. And you despise it because you do not think it offers the specialness that you demand. And hating it, you have made it little and unworthy because you are afraid of it. How can you grant unlimited power to what you think you have attacked? So fearful has the truth become to you that unless it is weak and little and unworthy of value, you would not dare to look upon it. You think it safer to endow the little self you made with power you wrested from truth, triumphing over it and leaving it helpless. See how exactly is this ritual enacted in the special relationship. An altar is erected in between two separate people, on which each seeks to kill his self, and on his body raise another self to take its power from his death. Over and over and over, this ritual is enacted, and it is never completed, nor ever will be completed. The ritual of completion cannot complete, for life arises not from death, nor heaven from hell. Whenever any form of special relationship tempts you to seek for love in ritual. Remember, love is content and not form of any kind. The special relationship is a ritual of form, aimed at raising the form to take the place of God at the expense of content. There is no meaning in the form, and there never will be. The special relationship must be recognized for what it is, a senseless ritual in which strength is extracted from the death of God and invested in his killer as the sign that form has triumphed over content and love has lost its meaning. Would you want this to be possible, even apart from its evident impossibility? If it were possible, you would have made yourself helpless. God is not angry. He merely could not let this happen. You cannot change his mind. No rituals that you have set up in which the dance of death delights you can bring death to the eternal, nor can your chosen substitute for the wholeness of God have any influence at all upon it. Seek in the special relationship nothing more than a meaningless attempt to raise other gods before him, and by worshiping them, to obscure their tininess and his greatness. In the name of your completion, you do not want this. For every idol that you raise to take place before him stands before you in place of what you are. Salvation lies in the simple fact that illusions are not fearful because they are not true. They but seem to be fearful to the extent to which you fail to recognize them for what they are. And you will fail to do this to the extent to which you want them to be true. And to the same extent, you are denying truth, and so are failing to make the simple choice between truth and illusion, God and fantasy. Remember this, and you will have no difficulty in perceiving the decision as just what it is, and nothing more. The core of the separation illusion lies simply in the fantasy of destruction of love's meaning. And unless love's meaning is restored to you, you cannot know yourself, who share its meaning. Separation is only the decision not to know yourself. This whole thought system is a carefully contrived learning experience designed to lead away from truth and into fantasy. Yet for every learning that would hurt you, God offers you correction and complete escape from all its consequences. The decision whether or not to listen to this course and follow it is but the choice between truth and illusion. For here is truth, separated from illusion and not confused with it at all. How simple does this choice become when it is perceived as only what it is? For only fantasies make confusion in choosing possible, and they are totally unreal. This year is thus the time to make the easiest decision that ever confronted you, and also the only one. You will cross the bridge into reality, simply because you will recognize that God is on the other side, and nothing at all is here. It is impossible not to make the natural decision as this is realized. Hello, Rika. Thank you, Cynthia, for jumping in and reading when I froze. Get to the bottom of this yet, hopefully.
I gotta say, there's this one line that hits me so hard every time is you cannot change his mind. No rituals that you have set up in which the dance of death delights you can bring death to the eternal. I don't know why, but that sentence always like just hits me with. I think there's another part too when it talks about rituals.
Mhm.
I, I don't know what it is. I don't know if anybody else, if it's just me, but I always have like, I don't know why that rituals thing really just kind of, I don't know, hits me. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely kind of spoke to me too when we were reading it, just because I think we do tend to put rituals in place, right? And I think the very first one is marriage, right? I think of that as a ritual, the marriage ritual, right? And isn't that like the whole definition of the special relationship? And don't you marry someone like, I know earlier for me was like, oh, you complete me. Oh, together we are better than alone or separate, right? And in truth, you do want to go with your brother, but not at the expense of yourself, right? And I think we do that in special relationships. We give up that part of us because of the dynamics of the relationship, right? Let's not even get into like narcissism and empaths and all of that crazy dynamic, because that happens too. But just from a perspective of, why are you attracted to the person to begin with? What is it in that person that you see that you think is going to make you a better person?
I
Right?
think
That's
also
all.
like
Go ahead.
um when I think of rituals, you think of the church, right? Like
Mhm.
religion. And I grew up both, Italian, very Italian parents, both came, from Italy, my father right off the boat. And so very Catholic. And I separated from that quite a few years ago. And I mean, I guess that's why maybe it hits me so hard, is because everything about religion, at least the Catholic religion, is about rituals.
Mhm.
It's about rules and the special relationship, I guess, with, I don't want to say God, but even like, you know, the priest or, I guess God. But yeah, maybe that's why it hits me so much, because I am so against that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know I've gone through periods where I've felt very opposed to religion and certain religious words, but I think as I've been doing the course, I've become accustomed to seeing words as symbols of symbols. So when
Mhm.
I now see religious words, I see them as symbols for something else. I see them as symbols of at one mint, or as symbols of like the Holy Spirit. I see that as a symbol of a word that is me, right? And my connection to the one mind of God.
Uh-oh.
Oh, she froze.
So I will wait. Yep, I froze again. I'm not sure how much of that you heard. But we read in the last section that we are God and we are the Holy Spirit and we are all those things. And I think certain ritual of certain symbols would have you think otherwise.
Hmm.
Having spent most of my life as a Buddhist, there's so many rituals within Buddhism, but I and I still do most of them. Uh, Good majority. I've even added some into it after studying the course, because I find that it focuses me on being able to, because Buddhism isn't necessarily a religion, but it's a mind training, and it helps me. I don't know, it's and I still feel value on a lot of those rituals, but they're not trying to take you away from God, which is not something that they talk about in Buddhism. And it's more of making of a good person. So I mean, rituals can be distracting, and I found that every relationship that I've ever had, I find that I I don't change that much. I'm just me. And if somebody can't accept that, then it has nothing to do with me. And every relationship that I seem to get into, they always seem as though they can change me. And that would be the reason why we're not in a close relationship anymore, because there's acceptance, and then there's working with someone for a betterment, and then there's not.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. I know in my relationships, I feel like I've changed quite a bit and I've gone through enormous growth and expansion and understanding of who I am. And a lot of that was was not knowing who I was and looking for the other person to save me or complete me or support me, right? And you know, it's funny because you're exactly what we just read has gone over and over and over. I can see the scenarios, how they played themselves out in each of my relationships. You know, where I've fought against, you know, well, you know, I'm just trying to find my voice more or less in each relationship, trying to find the power to speak my truth because I was so afraid to speak my truth before that because of a lot of my early conditioning and being raised, you know, in a house with a mother who was an alcoholic, and I was only safe if I was quiet and invisible, and I was only safe if I made everybody around me happy. So I spent a lot of my early years just trying to be a good wife or trying to make everybody happy so that I could feel safe. So yeah, really sacrificing who I was, not even looking at who I was.
Sounds like hell.
Yes. Hence the 5 marriages.
Hence the 3 marriages.
You know, when you speak of rituals, like Cynthia mentioned, when I think of rituals, my personal ritual, what do I do? How do I start my day? Based on, I was raised Catholic too. I was Catholicist teacher and so forth. So, but my rituals, like, this is what I do. This is what I do every morning. That's my ritual. I get up, the first thing I do is brush my teeth, wash my face. Then I go pray and meditate because I want to be cleansed in order to sit in front of my altar to do that. And so I look at rituals more so as some sort of spirituality opposed to trying to conform to a person that you're involved with. Because this is me. This is what you have to, if this is not something that you feel comfortable with, you need to go on your way because this is me. This is what I do. So rituals to me is like with spirituality.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
One of my favorite rituals of all time is my brushing of my teeth. I really that ritual.
It's like this. It's so funny because I want to have a nice clean breath when I'm speaking, communing with God. So that's how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, I want to, you know, I just want to roll out the bed. Say, okay, I'm here, connecting. That's me.
Yeah, that's great. And again, words are symbols of symbols, right? So we can call them rituals, we can call them practices, we can call them
Right.
communions with God, you know, we can call them mantras,
As long as that's going in the right direction.
right?
Let's
As long
go.
as we're aligned with God.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No worries. All right, any other conversations or input from anyone before we continue?
Well, I just want to, it's kind of on a different topic, but it's part of the course. And a person I know who's actually a teacher of the course came to a realization today, and I have just been doing handsprings, my soul, my heart, because I've listened to this person teach, and 90% of it is, and yet the same verse is read over and over again from the course, and it is nothing unreal, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. And so we who are in duality of thinking think that those two statements are oppositional because we focus on the words real and unreal. Therefore, if something's real, it has value and we know its truth. And if it's unreal, we disregard it, we don't give it any value. And so we think there's this dichotomy in the world. And so we then exclude the world and the The Course again uses the word illusion, which is meant as a tool, not as a fact, because it's not focused on the objects, it's focused on our perception. So to make a long story short, as his consciousness is evolving, he read those 3 sentences again this morning and recognized that the nothing unreal exists, not focusing on the words unreal in that phrase, but looking at it from the point of view that everything is real. Nothing unreal exists. Therefore, we're not looking at the word unreal, we're looking at the word exist. It all exists. And that's sort of the inclusionary way of looking at it versus looking at it from duality. It's looking at that little phrase from the wholeness of all point of view. And now then you can understand why there is this one truth, and it is in the world, not of it, but the world is only an illusion in the instance of applying that tool so that you recognize it's all our perception. When the perception is clear, when the mask, the costume is taken off the world, when the eyeglasses you're looking through are now crisp and clear instead of color-coded, you then see the true world of God's creation and our co-creation with God. So that then you come full circle back to the fact that it's all real. And this person came to that recognition this morning, and I was just I'm beyond myself with glee that, the Course is quite often misinterpreted because our consciousness is always in form, in material objects, or in separation, therefore it's either or and can't be both and. So it's applying the principles across the board, and then the words take on a whole different meaning and take you to new heights once you grasp those meanings.
I love that, Mary. It goes back to that saying, when you change the way you see the world you see changes. Yeah. And truth, all of the relationships I've been in, I have gratitude for, because it's been such an opportunity for me to know love and the truth of what love is, and to love myself and to be aligned with love, right? And it's the opportunity that's put in front of you again and again and again and again and again in all of these dichotomy of relationship conversations and situations and events. And it's like another choice. It's like, okay, who am I going to show up as right now? I could be triggered by this and my ego can speak, or I can choose to stop, align with love, and then allow God's voice to speak through me. And it's just a practice, right? Maybe you call it a ritual.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I have one more relationship. I did 6, but
there you go.
I did 4 in, I think, less than 10 years. I was the 3-year wonder.
Wow, good for you.
People had bets when I married my husband, who's now deceased, that they had bets that I wouldn't make it for more than 3 years. Everybody called and congratulated him after we were more than 3 years. It was so funny.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I finally learned my lessons, and I knew it after I was done. I was like, I don't need a relationship anymore. I will, wait. The shift from need to appreciate happened
Yeah.
when I was 30. And then I was able to find a relationship that, I was really ready for. But there was a shift in my own appreciation of myself, as well as, an appreciation of what I was choosing versus what I needed, what I lacked. And I remember the shift. And then, it was great from there. It was 26 years.
Yeah.
And he passed away, or it would have been a lot more.
That's amazing. Good for you. Yeah, I have a similar experience with that too. And, in this last one that I've been in now for the last 10 years, it's based on Gary Zukav's book, Spiritual Partnerships. And, it's for the purpose of our soul's expansion and our soul's growth. And it takes you through a course of saying, we promise to challenge those frightened parts of each other's personality for the purpose of our soul's growth and expansion.
Wow.
And that's it, right? So when the arguments come up, you go into the dialogue. Are you ready to challenge that frightened part of your personality? Because you're aligned with fear, right? So let's find out why you're aligning with fear right now. I'll do the work. I'll be the moderator, and it also helps you to detach from taking it in, right? Because the first thing I used to do was like, oh my gosh, this person is angry. I'm going to hide because I'm not safe. And now it's like I can be the moderator and say, okay, let's challenge this part of your frightened personality. Let's go deeper.
Interesting. I've just have to input. I only been married one time and we never had an argument in the entire marriage.
Wow.
But when it was time to leave that marriage, it was time to go.
Yeah.
So, and after that, I think it's looking at, I never looked at another person to define me. God connects with me and gives me the strength to go forth of whatever I have to do. And I always relied on that power, knowing that there was that power, that sense. Yes, I had, situations, relationships throughout. But of course they did not meet up to my ego standards. So I prefer sticking within my, the spirituality of all. So
Mhm.
yeah, just like they say, I'm not of this world. I'm in it, but not of it.
I love that. Yeah. Good for you to have that insight and that connection to God.
Yeah. It's not that. This is what I was taught from a kid. That's basically it. This is how my mom with her rituals groomed us as growing up. That's basically it. And it's funny when I come to groups like this, these are things I heard like 40 years ago. It's just repeat. So evidently there's something I'm missing. So I'm back here taking everything in again.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like it's not so much missing. I feel like every time you go through it, it's like polishing the lens, right? It gets a little clearer and a little clearer and a little clearer. It's like the things you already know, it's just getting clearer now, right? And as you practice it and put it into the world, you see it reflected back to you and you're like, oh, okay, this is what I want to see more of. And so you keep polishing the lens.
Right. And throughout, regardless of how many books you read or how many people that you connect with, you have to stay focused on one because it's all the same. It's just one.
It is. It is all the same, which to me is thrilling. I love when I'm reading books and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is everything I've already been reading and looking at. And it's just saying it another way.
Right.
I think that's why A Course in Miracles says, all paths lead to God. Right? Not just this one, but all paths, doesn't matter. Even if you're not reading anything, it's still going to lead you to God, all of your experiences, eventually.
Mhm.
Right? I remember my brother wasn't a big avid reader of anything spiritual, and he contracted AIDS, and he would go through these dark nights of the soul where he'd get really, really sick. And he would get all of these downloads of information when his mind was at this complete place of surrender. And he'd write it all down and scribble it while he was sweating and just feeling awful. And the next morning he would call me and he'd say, listen to what I wrote last night. And, you know, he'd read the whole thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I just read that in Course in Miracles. So I'd go to Course in Miracles and I'd find the spot and I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is what I received as a
Mhm.
direct connection,
Wow.
right? So yeah, it doesn't matter what you're reading. You have to get to that place of surrender, which doesn't mean giving up. It just means letting go of your ego.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else anybody wants to share before we continue? I watch, my internet has been perfect and now it's gonna start going wonky when I start reading.
Only because you said that.
I know, right? I'm manifesting it. Okay, here we go. It's gonna be wonderful. It's gonna be completely clear. All right, the bridge to the real world. The search for the special relationship is the sign that you equate yourself with the ego and not with God. For the special relationship has value only to the ego. To the ego, unless a special relationship has special value, it has no meaning, for it perceives all love as special. Yet this cannot be natural, for it is unlike the relationship of God and his Son. And all relationships that are unlike this one must be unnatural. For God created love as he would have it be, and gave it as it is. Love has no meaning except as its creator defined it by his will. It is impossible to define it otherwise and understand it. Love is freedom. To look for it by placing yourself in bondage is to separate yourself from it. For the love of God, no longer seek for union in separation, nor for freedom in bondage. As you release, so will you be released. Forget this not, or love will be unable to find you and comfort you. There is a way in which the Holy Spirit asks your help, if you would have his. The Holy Instant is his most helpful aid in protecting you from the attraction of guilt, the real lure in the special relationship. You do not recognize that this is its real appeal, for the ego has taught you that freedom lies in it. Yet the closer you look at the special relationship, the more apparent it becomes that it must foster guilt and therefore must imprison. The special relationship is totally meaningless without a body. If you value it, you must also value the body. And what you value, you will keep. The special relationship is a device for limiting yourself.
Okay. Special relationship is a device for limiting yourself to a body and for limiting your perception of others to theirs. The great rays would establish the total lack of value of the special relationship if they were seen. For in seeing them, the body would disappear because its value would be lost, and as your whole investment in seeing it would be withdrawn from it. You back, Terry?
I am. But why don't you go ahead, because it says my internet is still unstable.
Okay, sure. You see the world you value. On this side of the bridge, you see the world of separate bodies, seeking to join each other in separate unions and to become one by losing. When two individuals seek to become one, they are trying to decrease their magnitude. Each would deny his power, for the separate union excludes the universe. far more is left outside than would be taken in, for God is left without and nothing taken in. If one such union were made in perfect faith, the universe would enter into it. Yet the special relationship the ego seeks does not include even one whole individual. The ego wants but part of him and sees only this part and nothing else. Across the bridge, it is so different. For a time, the body is still seen, but not exclusively, as it is seen here. The little spark that holds the great rays within it is also visible, and this spark cannot be limited long to littleness. Once you have crossed the bridge, the value of the body is so diminished in your sight that you will see no need at all to magnify it. For you will realize that the only value the body has is to enable you to bring your brothers to the bridge with you and to be released together there. The bridge itself is nothing more than a transition in the perspective of reality. On this side, everything you see is grossly distorted and completely out of perspective. What is little and insignificant is magnified, and what is strong and powerful cut down to littleness. In the transition, there is a period of confusion in which a sense of actual disorientation may occur. But fear it not, for it means only that you have been willing to let go your hold on the distorted frame of reference that seemed to hold your world together. This frame of reference is built around the special relationship. Without this illusion, there could be no meaning you would still seek here. Terry, do you want to take over or do you want me to continue? Oh, I think you're muted.
You can keep going if you're all right to read.
Sure. For not that you will be abruptly lifted and hurled into reality. Time is kind, and if you use it on behalf of reality, it will keep gentle pace with you in your transition. The urgency is only in dislodging your mind from its fixed position here. This will not leave you homeless and without a frame of reference. The period of disorientation, which precedes the actual transition, is far shorter than the time it took to fix your mind so firmly on illusions. Delay will hurt you now more than before, only because you realize it is delay and that escape from pain is really possible. Find hope and comfort rather than despair in this. You could not long find the illusion, even the illusion of love, in any special relationship here. For you are no longer wholly insane, and you would soon recognize the guilt of self-betrayal for what it is. Nothing you seek to strengthen in the special relationship is really part of you, and you cannot keep part of the thought system that taught you it was real and understand the thought that knows what you are. You have allowed the thought of your reality to enter your mind, and because you invited it, it will abide with you. Your love for it will not allow you to betray yourself, and you could not enter into a relationship where it could not go with you, for you would not want to be apart from it. Be glad you have escaped the mockery of salvation the ego offered you, and look not back with longing on the travesty it made of your relationships. Now no one need suffer, for you have come too far to yield to the illusion of the beauty and holiness of guilt. Only the wholly insane could look on death and suffering, sickness and despair, and see it thus. What guilt has wrought its ugly, fearful, and very dangerous? See no illusion of truth and beauty there, and be you thankful that there is a place where truth and beauty wait for you. Go on to meet them gladly, and learn how much awaits you for the simple willingness to give up nothing because it is nothing. The new perspective you will gain from crossing over will be the understanding of where heaven is. From this side, it seems to be outside and across the bridge. Yet as you cross to join it, it will join with you and become one with you. And you will think, in glad astonishment, that for all this you gave up nothing. The joy of heaven, which has no limit, is increased with each light that returns to take its rightful place within it. Wait no longer, for the love of God and you, and may the holy instant speed you on the way, as it will surely do if you but let it come to you. The Holy Spirit asks only this little help of you. Whenever your thoughts wander to a special relationship which still attracts you, enter with him into a holy instant, and there let him release you. He needs only your willingness to share his perspective to give it to you completely. And your willingness need not be complete because his is perfect. It is his task to atone for your unwillingness by his perfect faith, and it is his faith you share with him there. Out of your recognition of your unwillingness for your release, his perfect willingness is given you. Call upon him, for heaven is at his call, and let him call on heaven for you.
Oh, that was so good. Thank you again, Cynthia.
Of course.
Anybody have anything they want to share? I feel like that just kind of re-emphasized some of what we were talking about before, especially with you, Rika. I thought of you when it said, you know, you're no longer interested in getting into a special relationship. You know, it just doesn't have appeal for you.
When I think of relationship, I wasn't thinking about body, person, whatever. So relationship could be anything. A relationship on how you do things. And the focus is supposed to be on this. To me, I read this as a preparation for death.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
Not releasing what you think is because it's not what it is, because you have created these relationships and how it's supposed to be, but just releasing, just come forth. And yeah, I will be there for you. You can't tie yourself to some people physical. It's not about a physical. It's not about a body. It's not about a person.
Mhm.
To me, it's more
Yeah.
so about just to be. How can I explain it? Just being. It's just being the relationship on how you develop or do things. You cut loose of that and you take the focus back to God and, you know, really take in those relationships of knowing that you are one with God. And with those relationships, it could be a number of things. How people view people. You're frozen, Terry. You're back.
Yes, sorry about that.
No,
Yeah,
that's okay. You don't have internet on your phone, your cell phone, mobile internet?
I do. It's just I use my computer for a lot of the things that help me to, you know, navigate screen sharing and all of that. And I don't think you can really do that
No,
very
but
well on your phone.
you can no. You can use your hotspot on your phone for your computer. I've done that before working and
Oh, I hear what you're
you
saying.
know, power go out, you know, as internet goes out, so I use my hotspot
Ah,
as backup.
that's brilliant. Maybe
Okay.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that tip. Yeah, you know, yes, because special relationships can be relationship with anything. Like you said, it can be with money. It can be a special relationship with your children. It can be a special relationship with your house, your car, your status, you know, all those things. So yeah, you're totally right. And what I really liked is when it talked about the bridge to heaven. Like you think that the heaven is on the other side of the bridge,
It's
but
right
it's
here.
not, right? Heaven is just a choice to see the world differently, right? And when you realize that you have that choice right now, you're going to say, wow, I gave up nothing. I had to give up nothing to see heaven on earth. I just had to make that choice to align with the mind of God and to be able to see through that vision.
Or we can talk about too, is about like when they said there's a veil, there is a veil. There's a veil that they step into as a veil. I don't know of your experience, but I know of my experience. Like I've been out where I know something pushed me down. So that's a veil. It could be, so it's everything is right there with they're just on a different side of the veil.
Right. Right. Good point. Good point. Completely. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I just keep going back to, I guess it's my perception of the whole organized religion thing, because when I was reading it, again, I saw no one needs suffer. And what guilt has, where was this part where it said, oh, I lost it now, but it talked about like here suffering, sickness, and despair. Only the wholly insane could look on death and suffering, sickness, and despair and see it thus. And they talk about guilt. I don't know. I just see it again as like, and then again about crossing the bridge, and you will think in glad astonishment that for all this you gave up nothing. Because I feel like in that organized religion, they do push suffering and guilt and all of that on you, and that you do have to give up. I mean, Lent, you have to give up things that and I just feel like this is saying like, no, that's all insane. You don't need to do all of that to be one with God. And I don't know, maybe that's just my perception. And every time I read it, it always has a different meaning for me. So for whatever reason now, this is what it keeps coming up, for me as I read this.
Yeah, the
So
operative word is need in that sentence. And again, we don't focus on that. But in saying we don't need it means we can opt to choose it, and that we have chosen it to begin with. So when we no longer need to attract that to us or to feel in lack, and that's why we deserve the suffering, the punishment, all of that stuff, we recognize that it is our choice. It was not God's choice for us. It's not the way the world works, but it's the way we have chosen to work the world.
yeah, good point.
I think it's so interesting, the lessons in particular are all about undoing, right? And undoing our belief system, undoing our early conditioning. And I see like my background is like no religion, mother alcoholic. I moved out when I was 15 years old. My whole conditioning was figure it out and just experience. And where Carl was more on a Buddhist conditioning, and Cynthia, you were more on the Catholic conditioning, and Rika, it sounds like your mother was a powerful part of the embodiment of God in your youth that helped you to have that mindset. And Mary, I'm not sure what your conditioning was, but I think it's so interesting. Like we all have these things to undo, right? I had to undo my fear and my people pleasing. Cynthia has to undo her religious indoctrination. And, we all have those things that we have to get rid of so that we can start putting in the truth.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, Cynthia, when you say that, because I remember telling my mom, I said, I think I'm going to be a nun for this family. Okay. And she's, oh no, please don't, something entirely different. It's just that, you just go there. And so I understand exactly how priests, they would put things on you, like if you're doing something wrong. During the time I was a catechist teacher, and I became pregnant, okay? And I said, oh my goodness. But that's when it changed. And I know that there's different sectors of the Catholic Church that think differently. And I had my second child, chose to have a child. And I said, okay, I'm gonna step down because I'm teaching these kids religion, okay? And they begged me, please, you're doing the most honorable thing of having your child. Please do not quit. So it's a difference. Catholicism, Catholicism and rules or whatever. But there was a different sector too with Catholicism too. So, yeah.
And I feel like it goes back to the truth is the truth. And you can see the truth in religion, and you can also see the untruth, right? So it's just knowing that the truth is there in places, and where you see the untruth, just realize, well, that's not true.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Lot
like you
to
said,
undo.
everybody wants the same result, you know? It's just, I guess, how you get there.
Yeah. A lot to undo, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love paragraph 12 where it said, the Holy Spirit asks only this little help of you. Whenever your thoughts wander to a special relationship which still attracts you, enter with him into a holy instant, and there let him release you.
Mm.
So I guess whenever we're attracted to something seems like greater than ourself, right? Oh, that I want that because that's going to make me feel more important or more successful or more something, more loved, right? That's where we have to say, okay, I'm going to align my mind with the mind of God right now. And that's where I'm going to bring in my grandeur, right? That's where I'm going to know I'm already successful. I'm already powerful. I'm already loved, instead of being tempted out here by all of these things that pop up that
Yeah.
catch our eyes, those little sparkling jewels.
It could be just the opposite. It could be like, for instance, like, do I really deserve this? You know,
Mhm. Right.
just having, oh, I don't deserve this. There's other people there. And so stepping into knowing that in fact, you deserve this, regardless of, what it is. I'm talking about as far as good things,
Sure.
accomplishments or whatever. You deserve this. Don't downplay it.
Right.
Yeah, and
Right.
having the balance. Again, the Trinity, which was why three sort of seems to be an important number, duality is two. We're making a choice. Trinity is the balance point. And so anything that you're attached to, you then have a judgment about. And since those opposites exist, you're attached to it, and then you're almost enslaved by it at the same time, because now you don't want to live without it, quote unquote. So we believe we have to have things in order to be happy. So as you think of things as whole, and you're in the balance point, you're centered, you can experience not only the opposites, but every facet of that whole, and not have to be in need of any of it, but just the joy of experiencing it, because you are centered in the balance point.
Beautiful.
Yeah, nice. Hmm.
Right. Anything else anyone would like to share? Well, I want to thank you, Rika, for that tip on the hotspot. I think I'm going to try that next time. See how that works. It sounds like that might be the fix.
Yeah, just download it to your phone, connect to your computer, because it's happened to me several times before.
Yeah, that's
But
a
here,
great idea.
when the internet goes out, just put my phone is always reliable. Yeah.
Right. I love it. All right. Anything else, or should we close for today? Thank you all for being here. It's wonderful as usual. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. And hopefully I'll be on my hotspot. And thank you, Cynthia, for taking over. I appreciate that. All right. Thank you, everyone. Always a pleasure. Thank you for all of your shares. Wonderful conversation as usual.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Bye, guys.